Hey, I'm Karen Colligan. Welcome to the Smart People Think podcast. I'm the founder of a leadership organization called PeopleThink. We help companies develop, engage, and keep good people. I've been helping organizations for more than 25 years, and I'm here today to do the same for you in less than 10 minutes. Ready to go? This episode is called Stress for Success. Yepers, that is exactly what I said. Because once we understand stress and what triggers our stress, we can actually use it to propel us forward. Now, on the flip side, if we allow stress to become too welcome, it can be very damaging to our mind, our body, and our soul. There's no question about that. So what the hey is stress anyway? So often the mere word can create panic and chaos. And actually, the American Institute of Stress, and yes, there actually is one, who knew, defines stress as a state of mental or emotional strain or tension resulting from adverse or very demanding circumstances. What I have to say about that, who really cares what they have to say? What matters is, how do you define stress? Because at the end of the day, all that matters is your stress. So here's how I define mine. When I know something is not the way it should be, and it's a different type of a demand, and I no longer have the control I like to have. I might get sweaty palms, that knot in my stomach. All of a sudden, I'm on high alert. And think about it. What's your definition of stress? Because stress is the body's way of protecting us. It's our body's way of responding to any kind of demand or threat. When you sense danger, whether real or imagined, the body's defenses kick into high gear. It's that fight or flight reaction. Should I stay or should I go? And stress is difficult to define because it's so different for each and every one of us. And it really is all about perception. As an example, think about riding a roller coaster. Now, does that sound like fun to you? Or does it make your stomach literally ache? Everyone's going to have a different reaction. For me, that is immediate stress. No questions asked, my stomach will literally ache. Here's the key to understanding that perception about your stressors. I want you to listen really carefully to this. It is not the event or thought itself that causes the stress. Let me say that again. It's not the event or thought itself that causes the stress. It's your emotional response to the event that causes the stress. I just think that's so interesting. So it's really not the event, it's how you respond to the event. So if we think about the roller coaster example, how I physically and mentally respond about the roller coaster causes me stress. I don't even have to be on the roller coaster, and I'm completely stressed out. So it's my emotional response, not the event or riding the roller coaster. It's what happens within me that is causing my stress. So if you think for a moment about what really stresses you out, and then think, what's your emotional response to it? How do you react? Understanding your triggers is the first place to go in order to manage your stress. So by not getting in line for the roller coaster, which is my trigger, I'm completely managing my stress. So I want you to think about the stress you identified. What was the trigger? And how did you respond to that trigger? And even the more important question is, how could you respond differently next time? Now let's look at stress from the motivator perspective, because stress can actually be a motivator for us and help us rise up to meet the challenge. Stress can keep us focused and on task. An example, stress can actually help us to finish that project. If I don't get this project done, I'll be letting the team down. Stress can help us make that phone call we've been dreading. So many times once you make the phone call, you think, oh, duh, what was so hard about that? Stress can help us to say no when that won't be a popular decision. So when you think about this logically, very often your emotional response about finishing that project or making that phone call or saying no is way worse than doing the task at hand. Once you recognize the triggers, you can begin to use those signals to propel you forward to take action and alleviate the stress. And that is a very good thing. So now let's look at when too much of a good thing just might be a tad damaging. As you can imagine, stress is no different. All of a sudden, you've passed that point of no return, and our stress becomes that wall that stops us in our tracks and can be damaging to our health as well. Some of the impacts of stress. So think about our body. We might get frequent colds, sleeping too much, or maybe too little. On our mood, we might get depressed, or anxiety might set in. We might have a short temper. On our behavior, we might start procrastinating. Oh, I'll do it tomorrow. Or we might become controlling. It has to be done now. And then chronic stress can lead to serious illness, like a stroke, like a heart attack. And that's just to name a few. Those are a tad alarming. And yet, by acknowledging our stress, it can truly help us have a keen awareness of something we need to pay attention to and alleviate. We can then put some strategies in play to embrace the stress triggers and signals and do something about it. And when we find ways to identify our stress, we'll be able to minimize the stress impact on our body, on our mood, on our behavior. I'm going to provide 15 ways to minimize stress. Woohoo! And I'm going to do this in a multiple short podcasts, so stay tuned for those. What I want you to recognize is that stress does not have to be that panic-ridden cloud that lingers over our heads and literally makes us sick. So the next time you feel stress is a-coming, I want you to do 3 things. First, recognize the stress. Number 2, identify the triggers. And number 3, use the stress to propel you forward into action. Remember, stress for success. Thanks for listening. I'm Karen Colligan. Music by Blue Dot Sessions. Editing by Marylee Williams. Till the next episode of the Smart People Think podcast. Have a good one.